What's up, IT friends? How you doing? It's Monday. That means it is Spicy Monday, and I have a question for you on this Spicy Monday. Were you ever picked last for something? Despite what you might believe, I definitely was. I was definitely the last kid picked for kickball and whatnot, all through school. Yeah, I ran cross country because of that. I was one of those kids, you know. More importantly, if you watch this channel, if you participate in the general IT community, I've probably encouraged you at some point to get out there and speak, to share, to talk, to present, because there is likely something you're doing that is interesting or different, or simply would validate other people in the audience if they heard it from you. Well, if you've gone out and taken that advice, you've probably been rejected from something that you've submitted to speak at, or multiple things. If you're me, I get rejected a lot. Sometimes that's because our content is a little too spicy to go on the main stage, and you know, the event organizers don't want to take a risk. Sometimes they don't know who we are and they don't want to take a risk. And well, sometimes they need their celebrity friends because they don't want to take a risk. In all cases, these conferences really can't afford to take a risk and don't want to take a risk. And we could get into a wonderfully delicious conversation about some of the back-end bullshit and politics that go into who speaks at what. But thankfully, we don't have to, because I have something really cool I want to tell you all about today.
Welcome to RejectionCon, where we rise from the dark. Our voices sound and strong. Together we trust.
Anyways, you get the idea. I don't play air guitar for a reason, and no one wants to hear heavy metal keyboard. Point is, we have RejectionCon coming back this year, December 11th, 12th, 13th. And if you have been rejected from speaking at quite literally anything by anybody, you should apply. You should apply to speak, because we want to hear you. If you go to RejectionCon.com, you can see all the people who, well, I guess it's not all the, hey, I'm not on there. What the hell? Who made this website? You could see many of the people who spoke last year at RejectionCon. We got some really cool talks. We had some faces you're familiar with if you go to the conference scene, but what was nice was they were giving talks they can't give on stage at a regular conference because the conference doesn't want to hear it. And we had people that you've never seen on stage because they've never been allowed on stage. And that's what I really, really love about what we're doing with RejectionCon. This year, we've taken it a step further, and we've really worked hard to build out a speaker selection committee system that will push us running the conference 1 degree separation from who's actually speaking even further. So it should be a little bit even less of a who you know competition and a what you know and what you have to say opportunity. So please submit ASAP. The link will be in the video description and on the screen and probably other places as well. So really quick, RejectionCon is raising money this year, just like last year, for the Rural Tech Fund. We were able to support a bunch of classrooms in the Midwest last year with all sorts of awesome STEM stuff. And we're trying to expand that initiative to be even bigger this year and support even more classrooms. And besides the fact that that's wholesome AF, and you're helping kids with technology and helping teachers with technology, if you're pragmatic and a little bit Machiavellian like me, you might be saying, so what? Why do I care? Well, because I know you all complain that you can't get good technicians for cheap prices, and these are going to be those technicians in like 5 years. So there you go. A small investment now, cheap labor in the future. Everybody wins. So we've talked in the past a little bit about the fact that to really have a healthy, balanced conference that everyone enjoys, we need to have sponsors, we need to have engaging speakers and content, and we need to have attendees. And superficially, it does make some amount of sense that the people organizing any conference want to try to have speakers that are likely to already be somewhat well known so that they will draw an audience, so that can be part of the draw. That event is then basically paid for by the sponsorships, and the sponsorships are then rewarded by having those attendees come and give patronage to their booths and maybe even a lead list. And so in theory, everything works very nicely. But if you've been to a lot of events, you notice that that's often not who's getting on stage. That's often not who's speaking at these events. There's a certain amount of people that are very engaging speakers that you're likely to go there excitedly to see. I remember back in the old days of like, I don't know, like Gary Pica or Paul Dipple or Mike Seymour, or somebody like that was getting on stage at a conference. I knew for sure I wanted to be in those session rooms because whatever they were going to talk about was something that I was going to learn a lot about from. And then in the, as we move forward, if I kind of still back in the day, but not as back in the day, if Brad Gross was speaking, I wanted to be in that room because Brad Gross was going to present some element of thinking about my MSP from a legal standpoint I had never thought about before. So there's always been a little bit of that. There's been speakers like that, but as more and more conferences have cropped up, and of course there's a finite amount of top tier speaking talent that are both subject matter experts, good at speaking, and actually people that we want to listen to, well, a lot of bullshit gets interjected in there. And the sad truth is most of that bullshit is pay to play. Yes, my friends, I'm sorry. Many of the events you go to, the speakers that you are seeing on stage have either directly or indirectly paid to be there. That causes some challenges because as an event organizer starts to tie more and more of the speaking slots to sponsorship slots, first of all, that means many of the speakers are sponsors, which isn't in and of itself a problem, except it becomes a problem. If I'm at a show about automation or I'm at a show about RMMs, let's say, I don't know, Ninja has sponsored the event and they have also paid to have a speaking slot, and they give up and they give a compelling, informative, and educational talk about leveraging your RMM for automation. Let's say leveraging your RMM to push PowerShell. And there's some basic lessons in that presentation about just general PowerShell literacy and how to approach using an RMM to better automate your PowerShell. Most attendees are going to leave that session feeling like, hey, I learned something, this was worth it. And that was cool that Ninja gave it, but it wasn't about Ninja. In theory, that's what should be happening when vendors have to pay to sponsor speaking slots. But in practice, what ends up happening, and we all know this, is you don't get that person. You get somebody from the sales and marketing department who really ends up giving you a pretty tired slide deck that's very pitch slappy. And we've all met other vendors that have done that. And we even know vendors that didn't used to do that have started doing that because that's what's happening. That's problematic for a number of reasons. Because first of all, if I go back to a healthy conference trifecta, we're diluting wanting to go to these shows and receive content. It's content I can get online for free without having to pay to go to the show or to travel somewhere, which is very expensive. And lastly, it means that we're not really making an effort to prioritize the best possible speakers. You might be saying, well, what do you care, Dean? You're a vendor. Exactly. So that example I gave of Ninja, if Ninja wanted to send someone to, I'm just picking on them as an example because I think we all like Ninja. If Ninja wanted to send somebody to a conference just to give a session on how to better leverage an RMM for automation, it had nothing to do with pitching Ninja, but it's a Ninja employee, there's a good chance they'll be rejected from the conference because they didn't pay to speak, which now means that about 40% of your total speaker marketplace, which comes from subject matter experts that work at vendors, are not really welcome to speak at conferences unless they pay to be there. At a pitch fest, well, that's shitty, but okay. But that's happening at educational focused conferences too. I'm not going to name them because I won't be welcome back if I do, but there's some educational conferences that y'all hold near and dear as being some of the only ones that are wholesome and educational where you cannot get on stage if you didn't pay to get on stage. Yeah, that's pretty fucked. And that ends up meaning that there's a lot of smart people from a variety of different backgrounds, MSPs, vendors, VARs, integrators, MSSPs, that have a lot of really interesting stuff that they could teach us all about that we're not hearing from because they don't want to dump thousands of dollars on having to get on stage for 20 minutes to be able to sell you something, even though they're not selling you something. But now they kind of have to because they paid to be on stage. And the whole thing really aggravates me.